I'm gonna record it. I did record. If I have technical problems, please remind me to record. That didn't happen last time. I had to leave and come back in and we get it recorded. So that was a bummer. I'm Pamela Landers, and I'm here with Marlene Clay and Michael Jurassic. We are doing the Heartlines class together that begins next week, and today is a conversation about the Heartlines. We're going to have a participative with you conversation talking about Heartline combinations when you have more than one Heartline type and what the experience of that is. We're glad that you can be here to be part of this. Hi, Christine. If you are on here, Joyce and Cheryl and Dixie and the Finley family, if you can mute yourself. I can't mute you if you, oh, there I go. Okay. Joyce, I can't mute you, and Finley's, there we go. Okay. It's just helpful to not have you talking unless you're talking and not have the background noise. So we're going to go through just initially the information about the class that we're going to be doing, and then we'll be getting into a very interactive conversation where you are going to be sharing your experience and stories about having multiple Heartline types. And we'll have questions for you, Q&A time for you to ask questions if you're interested in the class. And Christine, I'm so glad you're here because I just keep feeling you in this class, and I have from the very beginning. So I don't know if that's going to work or not, but I, from the beginning, have felt you in the class. So just say it. All right, let me go into slideshow mode. There we go. True to Your Design Academy, that's the name of the academy that we're now set up to be teaching classes. All the classes I'm teaching and all the ones other people are teaching are related to hands at this point and are going through the True to Your Design Academy, and we have a website, truetoyourdesign.com. Isn't that perfect that it was available? Gotta love it. Our hostesses today, Marlene and Michael. So you can see how Michael spells her name. And yes, and as she said last time, too hard to pronounce names. We're doing it, Michael.
Speaking of that, Pamela, we're not following the slideshow. I think the way that
you're not?
It's showing the whole thing down the left side. Not just.
Oh, darn.
So we're still on the first slide.
I don't know why that happens. Now, all right, we'll try it again.
The first slide.
From the beginning, okay, here's the first slide. Now do you see slide 2 that has your names on it?
No.
No? Oh, technology. All right, we're not going to do that then. We're going to do it this way. Can you see it?
There we go.
All right, so we're not going to do it in slideshow format because apparently, technically, that's not working. All right, so Michaelin's spelling of her name, in case you were wondering. So the purpose of this webinar is to talk about our class on Heartlines that starts next week on Wednesday at the same time. And then we'll be going into demonstration of the actual class, playing with conversations about Heartline combinations. So the demonstration is going to be involving you. And we discussed the big heart last time. So we'll be including that as part of this because most people who have combinations of Heartlines, which we'll explain what that is, have a big heart. Almost all of them do. Then we'll be talking about the multiple Heartlines today, as we had said. So we'll be asking you to participate. So be thinking, if you are a hand analyst, or if you're not a hand analyst, some of the introduction conversation may spark what it is that we're going to be doing. So as a reminder, heart lines are about how you express feelings, how you express love, how you want love expressed to you, you know, the way love styles, people talk about having a certain kind of love style. This is, a lot of people refer to the heart lines as love styles. And your style of communicating feelings. This is the emotional feeling line in the hand. Our class on heart lines has two purposes. To understand heart lines, like just exploring all the not all, but almost all. You will get documents that have all of the characteristics that I'm aware of and Marlene and Michaelin are aware of. For the 4 heartline types plus the simian crease, which has very similar properties to the romantic idealist heartline type. And then for people who want to be certified to teach heartlines through the True to Your Design Academy, you will also have extra time with us and other benefits that you get if you decide you want to do the certification track. Either way, you're all going to get recordings of the classes and you all will have an opportunity to be live on classes. So the first part, the first 12-week class is on the 4 heartlines and combining heartlines, which we're going to be doing today. And as a result, if you're on the certification track, you also will be doing some of the teaching while we're going. We want you to start off feeling like, oh yeah, I get to be in teacher mode energetically, even if you don't understand all the content. Just experience, take on, own that energetic of being a teacher. We'll be supporting you in that process. And then part 2 is the heartline extras. There are 15 of them. All these extra lines that connect to the heartline. It's complex. This is where heartlines get complex. The 4 heartline types, not as complex as all the extras that add, plus conversations about business and heartlines and sex. This is so fun. I love to talk about sex. It's 12 weeks. This time, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern for 90 minutes per week, starting on Zoom, just like this. Next week on February 6th through April 24th. And as I said, all classes will be recorded in both audio and video, and we'll be communicating with you about having those. There are ways that all of us who are on the call could record at the same time. We'll be telling you how to do that if you would like to record them yourself. The $850 full pay for the certification track, then $650 if you're on the learning track, and payment plans are available. These are the 3-part payment plans for certification, $290 a month or $220 a month for the learning track. This is all on the website, truetoyourdesign.com. In the Heartlines class section, you'll find all of this information listed. As a reminder, these are the 4 heartline types. The 2 short ones are the passionate and the hermit. They end underneath the middle finger. All heartlines start underneath the pinky, and they're either straight or short, straight or curvy, short or long. We'll be talking about what all that means. The short ones end underneath the middle finger, and the long ones, the romantic idealist over here and the big heart over here, are considered long, and they go over to the index finger, the Jupiter. And here is an example of a hand that has 3 heartline types. So Michaelin, would you explain about having multiple heartline types?
I would love to. It's more common than not to have multiple heart lines. When you look at both hands and look at the heart lines on both hands, you might have one heart line, like a hermit on your left hand and a big heart on the right. Or you might have a combination, like in the slide that's shown, of 3 or 4 different heart lines even on one hand. So if you're looking at your hands, and all of you are hand analysts, is that correct?
No, not all of them. Not everybody today.
Not
Yes.
everybody
A
today.
lot of them, but not all of them.
Okay. So I'm curious about those of you that have multiple heart lines. Looking at this diagram and the pictures, the slides that Pamela's shown, there's a special conversation that we have about that. And can you indicate to me how many of you have multiple heart lines?
I'm going to stop sharing so we can.
Both hands combined. I know we don't have audio or video of most people.
You can type in the chat box at the bottom of the screen, or you can, if you are on video, you can unmute your video on the lower left-hand corner and we can see you, and then you can say something or do something.
I'd love you to just chat in which heart lines you have on your two hands combined, and we can get a sense of how many people have multiple heart lines. Yes, I think I do. From Sandy.
All four, Kathy. Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle,
3.
Michelle, okay, Michelle Finley, okay, on her right and left. That's a lot, Michelle.
So Linda, you have 2 romantic idealists. So you're like me. I have the same heart line on both hands. I think Marlene and Pamela, you both have the same heart line on both hands.
Yes.
And 2 romantic idealists from Christine on both hands. Okay, so there's a nice mix. A big heart on both hands. So it seems about evenly split, maybe a little more towards someone having the same heart line on both. Nearly a split curved heart line on the left hand, both and under Jupiter.
If you haven't typed in the chat box because you don't know, would you type in the chat box, I don't know?
Great question.
Also, can I say something? This is Dixie.
Yes.
Yes, I have nurturing heart line on the right hand, and I used to have a romantic idealist on the left hand, but it is now split and becoming more nurturing on the left hand also.
Meaning big heart, right?
Yes.
Pardon?
Meaning big heart versus nurturing. Nurturing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just clarifying so the language is consistent in this group. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Lines can change. Yep. Thanks, Dixie.
Dixie, you also raise a good point that different hand analysts have used different terms for the different heart lines on the hands. And they all reflect the qualities of those, but for purposes of this class, we are using big heart, romantic idealist, the hermit, and the passionate. And so not sure. Cheryl, I don't know, and Sandy, not sure. Okay. So when we're in the class, part of that will be getting your handprints in and looking at them to see what you actually have in your hands. Some of you might even be surprised at what you see when we get really close up and zoom in on handprints. There may be some other heart lines. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is ask those of you that have multiple heart lines, what's your experience of that? Again, some of you don't have a lot of information yet about the characteristics of the different heart lines, but for those of you that do, what's your experience of having multiple emotional styles present in your system and in your energy? Is there anyone that's willing to speak about that?
Can you see the photos again? Okay, shall we go back to the photos before we progress? Good question. All right, let's see. I have to go to share screen. Go back to this.
And Alyssa, we'll talk about fraying in the class.
So this one, this is the passionate. It curves and goes up. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. It curves and goes up to the middle finger, has a pretty dramatic curve. That's the passionate. A hermit is short and pretty straight. This one has a tiny bit of curve to it. And sometimes it curves up a little bit more, but it doesn't ever go all the way up to the fingers. And again, ends underneath. There's sort of like an imaginary dotted line in between the index finger and the middle finger. And if it crosses that line, then it goes into underneath the index finger. So those are considered the long heartline types. This is the romantic idealist. It goes all the way underneath the index finger, but it's straight. And the big heart is curvy and goes over to the index finger. It can go all the way over to the edge, but most of the time it hangs out on this edge of the index finger, the inside edge. Does that answer your question, Sandy? Did that help you identify? Okay, maybe she's typing. Yes, I think I have a passionate then. Okay, great.
So Nellie, I'm curious, you said you have different ways of relating to different people, and this can actually be master path and student path behavior of multiple heart lines. So can you talk a little bit? Can you have audio, unmute yourself and talk to us a little bit about how that works for you? Ways of relating?
It does not always work well. I can be very cold and standoffish. I can be very short. I can be very cuddly. It depends on who it is and, you know, what the relationship is.
What heartline types do you have?
I think I have the big heart and the romantic idealist.
Okay.
Okay. So what do you know about the big heart and the romantic idealist that they have in common?
Nothing. I don't know anything about the heartlines.
Okay. Okay. When we looked at the photos that Pamela had of the different heartline types, do you remember where those two ended?
They end closer to the index finger than the middle finger.
Yes, exactly. Those are the two longer headlines. Does anybody else in the class have that particular, heartline? Anyone else in the class have that particular combination of romantic idealist and big heart, the two longer heartlines that end under the Jupiter finger?
I do. It's Dixie.
Okay, Dixie. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that feels for you and how those work together or nicely, or how they maybe work together not so nicely?
Well, the romantic idealist, I had a tendency to process information way too much, over-process. And I'm just trying to think the nurturing, because it's becoming more nurturing, and then I have the other hand is, no, sorry, not nurturing, big heart. The other hand is the big heart. I may be overly generous about my time and money.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is that the commonality is this, it's a consideration for others. Right? Those are what the two have in common when they end under the Jupiter fingers. And we'll be talking more about characteristics of all of the heart lines. Those two have that in common, that they are other focused.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just add another phrase to that of taking care of other people's needs first. That's how the other focus. Yes.
Is there anyone that has a different combination of two or more heart lines in their hands and they would like to speak about how that works for them?
I would like to ask, is the big heart and the passionate the same?
The big heart and the passionate are not the same.
What is the big heart then?
The big heart is physically, it's the longer line that ends under the Jupiter finger, the pointer finger. And the passionate is a shorter curved line that ends
Oh, okay. Thank
on
you.
the finger or the Saturn finger.
Thank you.
They both curve.
They curve up. So you have both of those? Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I have, they go almost across the palm with a curve up. They split up towards the index finger and then out towards the,
And is there anybody else in the class that is familiar with those two heart lines that would like to talk about any characteristics and how they might work together and how they might not work together?
Linda might know.
I'm sure Linda knows.
Linda, do you want to share anything about the passionate and the big heart?
Well, whoever was speaking before, saying that she could be cuddly and then she could be really short, curt, whatever, aloof. I mean, totally romantic idealist, because of course the non-negotiable need for that heart is meaning. And if someone's standing around chit-chatting about the Real Housewives of Atlanta, ain't got time for that. But the big heart, of course, the nurturer, the non-negotiable need for connection, that's when the cuddly side of that person comes out. So she's being true to both of her types. And the question I would ask her is, does she honor both, or is she spending more time in one realm than the other?
Good question.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you, Linda. The two heart lines that curve up, so what Nellie has on her hand, the big heart and the passionate. So a quick characteristic of each of those. The big heart is obviously the nurturer. We've talked about that a lot, and considering other needs, often before her own. The passionate, can someone give a characteristic or two of a passionate heart line?
Passionate is, I want what I want and I want it now.
So how might those two heart lines work together for you, Nellie? How do you experience both considering others and wanting what you want and wanting it now?
I do want what I want, and I want it now, definitely. And I'm also considerate of others that sometimes I just don't honor my own desire. And so I might get mad because I'm giving it away, giving away my power to the other person. Yeah.
Can you imagine a way, Nellie, that those two heart lines can work together well?
I've never thought about it. I don't have any clue.
How
Is there
about
anybody?
Christine or Cecilia?
Yeah.
Sharing.
Well, what about being an advocate, speaking, having a voice for others who have no voice? So you can, state your desires and on behalf of others in order to support and nurture them.
I think that sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great way for those two heart lines to work together. Is there anybody else that has an idea about how a big heart and a passionate can honor both and be on the master path of both at the same time? When we haven't heard from yet.
So on multiple heart line, there are two comments in the chat box, one of which is that Sandy has a romantic idealist and hermit, and Michelle has a hermit, romantic idealist, and big heart, which is the most common way when you have three that they look. And she says, in the hermit, I need time alone every day to renew. sounds exactly like my language. Romantic, I remember reading your hand. Romantic idealist. I seek deep, meaningful conversations, even if it's at Whole Foods checkout, if the person can go there with me. The big heart, soulful connection is the most important thing to me aside from centering my own self. Yay for centering your own self. That's so hard for the big heart. Congratulations on that.
Yes.
And Sandy is saying maybe they could help get something important, nurturing done now. Are you talking about the big heart? That's a good conversation about the big heart and the passionate together. Maybe they could get something important, nurturing done now. Yeah. So the 3 heartline types that Sandy has, big heart, romantic idealist, and hermit. And then Sandy has the hermit and Michelle has those 3. Sandy has the hermit and the big heart. I mean, the hermit and the romantic idealist. So let's have a conversation about that. Marlene, would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, well, one of the things about those 2 heartlines is that they're both more reserved when it comes to outwardly expressing their emotions. So it may be really hard to see if you meet someone who has those 2 heartlines. It may not be obvious to you what they're feeling because they may not show that. They may be thinking about it. They may be feeling it inside, but it's not necessarily going to come out in an obvious way. Because that's usually not that it's not comfortable for them to do that. It's not natural.
And what would they need?
And I'm a double hermit, so.
What would a romantic and hermit need in order to be able to communicate how they feel?
To feel safe, particularly the hermit, they would need to feel a very safe space. And for the romantic idealist, I think, often one-on-one is really good for the romantic idealist, where it feels really close and safe and that they have someone really listening to them.
And they need to feel safe as well. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So Christine, what would you like to say?
I don't know. I mean, about any in particular, are you saying? Or?
Any combination that we've been talking about so far?
Well, I feel like the hermit and the romantic idealist, like Marlene was saying, they're going to appear very similar qualities, but for different reasons. They're not emotionally expressive. I think the trickier one was the big heart and the passionate. And actually, I like what Linda said about that. I wouldn't have used those words, but I like the word, the advocate. That's exactly what I was thinking, was fighting for, was being very passionate about what I want for you would be a way that I could see that working. I don't know that I have anything new to add to all this, but
How about the student path? How about the student path?
Well, I can think of student paths individually, but I don't know about the combination. But one thing that just came to mind was my daughter's got 2 pretty short hermit heartlines, and she was talking to me the other day, and I think she thought, she doesn't use the word master path and student path because she doesn't believe all this stuff. However, I should be becoming more open to it at 24. But she the way she was talking, as if she thought this was a master path thing she was doing. And she was saying that she keeps all her feelings in. When her friends are all getting very emotional, she's very mature in that she doesn't express her feelings. I listened and let her go on about how she was going on about how she doesn't, she's really mature because she keeps it all in. And, obviously that's a student path of hermit stuff. But anyway, I don't have any specific student path of combinations coming to mind right now.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I'll just say when I was younger, because I was like, they're so dramatic. Like, come on, people. Why do you have to tell everybody? But yeah.
It's not completely a student path thing, by the way. I mean, hermits really do need not to express how they feel. It's part of their design. But they'll do it when they need
to. Not always, not ever.
And
Yeah.
the rest of it appreciate the hermit's ability to handle our drama and our high emotion. I'm a double big heart, and my husband is a double hermit. And I love that about him, that he can hold it in and he can wait and let me express myself and get it all out and, blow the mountain. And then when he has time to process, he can express if he needs to, but he really doesn't have as big a need to do that as I do. So I appreciate the containment of the hermit energy.
I did just think of a combination student path in my life, personally. Something's popping on my computer. My husband's got, I thought or at least he used to have two romantic idealist heartlines like me, but he's developed, one of them has become more, got a hermit branch over the last couple years. And he resonates more with the hermit. He denies the romantic idealist stuff because all the feelings are very irrelevant to him. He's a scientist and got a lot of straight lines, and he can have deep, meaningful conversations. He just claims they don't matter. So I mean, he likes the whole hermit. He relates to hermit outwardly, and so it's. I mean, I can see the romantic idealist qualities in him, but he denies it. So I feel like that's a student path thing. Like, he's like, go hermit. That's the way to be. I mean, he doesn't say that, but that's kind of that's his attitude. Is that no reason to ever show your feelings ever.
Of course, he doesn't say it.
Yeah.
Who would say go hermit if they had hermit?
But he's very intelligent. He can have a conversation about anything, but he just feels there's no reason to ever show feelings.
Okay.
It's very immature again.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing. Sandy put in the chat box, maybe they could help get something important, nurturing done now. Yes, resonates. In one job interview where she couldn't tell if she really wanted the job, I did, but I didn't display it. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
I think she's talking about the hermit, or the romantic idealist, but not being able to read the emotions. So the interviewer couldn't tell that she was really excited, really wanted the job because she wasn't showing any emotion. That's
Good
how I'm
use
reading
of your intuition. Yes, I'm reading that. And then under Juliet Michelle Finlay, student path example, my daughter won't share with her suite mate that she doesn't want her lying in her dorm room bed with her bare feet on her pillows. Oh my God, yes. That needs to be communicated at some point because the resentment's just going to build and build and build and build until she explodes. All right, Kathy, I have all four on my dominant and agree that my hermit is strongest, and I'm a great listener, letting others express more, and I can wait until I'm really passionate about something, then watch out, and then I'm out there. Great, that's a really good example. Thank you for sharing that, Kathy. Yeah, having four heartline types, I'm just going to say, this is what I say when I do readings for people who have 3 or 4 heartline types, is that you might feel crazy because you have 3 or 4 different emotional expressions. Most people may have 2. Like when I did a survey, I had 200 sets of handprints that I was looking at, both left and right hands. I did this quite a while ago. And I discovered that most people have the majority, 2/3 of the majority have 2 heartline types. That's what I discovered. So maybe one on, big heart on one hand and hermit on the other was what I discovered was the most common. When you get into 3 or 4, you're now in the world of hardly anybody has that. Hardly anybody has that flexibility, and hardly anybody has that crazy making thing for them. For other people, like what heartline is going to show up in this circumstance, right? Maybe they're used to your hermit, and they're used to, like you were talking about, Kathy, if it's dominant, they're used to their hermit. When the passion shows up, they're kind of going, oh my God, right? Yeah, so it can be very confusing on the student path, and you have a lot of flexibility on the master path, but confusing to others on the student path about which heartline is showing up, and they don't know how to respond or react or deal with it. That can be one of the challenges in relationships is, this is a relationship line. Anything that anybody else wants to add about having multiple heart lines? Marlene or Michaelin or anybody else about the process?
I do want to add something that it is, it's very common to have multiple heart lines, and the flexibility, I think, is a master path. Attitude about that, or belief about having multiple heart lines, that it's not just in your how much you express your emotions, or how much you don't express your emotions, or how nurturing you are, or how much alone time you need and where you are with that. It's also what you tell yourself about having multiple expression. So I like that a class like this can help people to ground in each of the heartline types so that they feel more normal in expressing from each one of them, and that they get to be nice. We get to be nice to ourselves in classes with Pamela, especially because she activates that so well. We get to be nice to ourselves about the flexibility of adapting to whoever we're with in the moment, instead of on the student path being self-critical or feeling like we're not doing it right, which is what Kathy says. It's crazy, and especially being in the School of Wisdom, what's correct. And so flexibility, what's correct, is master path and student path both.
And it depends, Kathy. As you know, it depends. There is no answer that's true all the time.
And I think the other piece, then once we get more comfortable with being so nice to ourselves, is then also being able to recognize in other people, right, that when they shift into a whole different behavior, or to realize that people have all these different ways of expressing, and it can change on a dime sometimes, and just to be aware of that, and be flexible with others too, and compassionate for where they are.
Good point. Right, dealing with people, you don't have the multiple heartline types, but others do. Don't you wish they would act like you? What's that song about something something, don't you wish your girlfriend was just like me? Don't you wish your girlfriend was just like me? I'm dating myself a little bit. I think that's been around for about at least 10 years, but I love that line.
I used to be extremely judgmental about people's emotional style. Being a double big heart, I thought everybody should be nurturing and caring and thoughtful and considerate, and those who weren't just weren't quite as advanced or something on the emotional trail. And holy cow, did that cause problems in relationships, until I learned about hands, and I gave everybody space to be their own emotional type. It just made a huge difference in all of my relationships. It's probably the most powerful change that I've experienced, is just understanding heartline types.
Yeah, and I think you bring up such a good point, because as women especially, so many of us, if we aren't the big heart type, we're told over and over, right? You're supposed to be, as a female, and as a woman, you're supposed to be nurturing and caring and take care of everybody and want to do that, and be selfless and give. And, and even if you're a big heart, that may be annoying to hear all the time. But I think for people who aren't big heart, it's like, oh, I'm not being, I'm doing it wrong. Like Kathy mentioned, right? I'm not doing this right. I'm not, I should be doing this. And then you feel shame, or you feel bad about how you actually feel, especially if you're a me first type, right? So I love that you brought that up, because it can go both ways on both sides of that.
Yeah. I'm having this epiphany. I love this about hands. There's new stuff that comes in all the time. And Michaelin's in a year-long class that I'm teaching, and almost every week I'm going, oh my God, I'm getting this new insight. So the insight is that, and I've known this, but I'm feeling it at a whole new level, that the consciousness of understanding, if you just knew heartlines, the consciousness that is available to you about compassion and passion, both passion and compassion, I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, is huge. So the compassion is having permission for other people to be their type, as we were just talking about. But the passion is being passionately committed to what your design is. Not having to adapt your heartline type to what other people need, because then you might feel loved, right? People need you to be true to your type. And like Michelle, like you were talking about with, is it Juliet that has the 3 different ones, or is it you? Okay. So the 3 different, she said I do. Yeah, the 3 different heartline types, to be true to that, to own that, to be passionate about the fact that you don't have a passionate heartline, but you have the other 3, right? To be passionately committed to your type, as opposed to flexible and adaptable and, oh, let me pretend, like you were saying, Marlene, let me act as if I'm a big heart when I'm really not. I was having this conversation with a girlfriend of mine a few months ago. I don't look at myself as being compassionate, but she thinks I am. And I've really been in this whole struggle about that word of being compassionate. Because I don't look at myself as, I'm so dominant in my Jupiterian in charge leadership energy that sometimes compassion just, I think, goes out the window. But she said, I think you are really compassionate. I see you as a very compassionate person. I've been struggling with owning that, right? So it's been an interesting journey to have permission to own even that aspect of having romantic idealists on both hands, because I think romantic idealists have the capacity to be compassionate. I'm thinking they do. Because they're focused on other people's needs first. That's just like, oh my God, being passionately committed to your heartline type. That feels really important. Not apologizing for it or diminishing or pretending it's not true or all those things that we try to do to fit in. So hard. Michelle, did you want to say something? Or are you just visible to us? Okay, I can't hear you. There's no sound coming out of there's no sound on your end. So I don't know if you're not muted, but there's no sound coming through. Okay. Are you going to say something? I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, you can put it in the chat box because we couldn't hear your voice. All right. Back to you, Michael and Marlene. What is up next?
Wait, can I say something to Stella?
Yes.
Regarding what you just said, as far as the romantic idealists, I believe they are very compassionate. They just may not know how to express it, the compassion. They've got to think about it.
Good point.
Or they don't feel safe enough, right, to express their compassion. Because what's so important to them is that they're safe.
Yeah, I feel lots of compassion. I just may not tell you about it. I feel it.
Okay, good point, right? Cautious and reserved about sharing feelings with romantic idealists.
Pamela, this is Alyssa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I was sort of, just listening in on this conversation around being true to one's heart design and then understanding everyone else's heart design and compassion. To me, let me see if I can make the video work because maybe it'll be easier to see me as I'm talking. I wonder if compassion serves as the bridge where we can stay in our heart line and then meet someone else in their heart line, and compassion is sort of the way that we connect and meet instead of conforming and switching to be there, or them conforming or us expecting us to conform and be to theirs. Because I don't know, Pamela, I've only, this is the second time I've talked to you ever. I was at just so everyone else, I was at an event Pamela ran 5 years ago or so, and you didn't know me. I saw you from afar, and I'll just say it, your energy felt compassionate to me, and it still feels that way even in these email exchanges and even in this conversation. So
Thank you for that.
I think, I don't know, I'm an energy person, so I think compassion has an essence energy to it that's independent of someone's emotion about whether or not they think they're compassionate or other people are compassionate.
That's a good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Anyway, that's
All right, I'm going to own that I can be a compassionate person. I'm going to own it.
Get the wand.
Thank you.
Get the wand.
And Michelle also
Does
put it
it
in the
feel
chat.
good? Does it feel good to own it?
It does, actually. It feels good to not resist it and not pretend that it's not true. And
Yeah.
I can own. And Michelle put that in the chat box as well. She feels like I'm a compassionate person. So thank you all for giving me that feedback. That makes it okay for me to
And I don't
do
even
that,
know,
so.
you don't have to answer this question, but like sometimes like asking the question in reverse can be really clarifying for people too. So like, oh, I don't feel compassionate. Well, okay, Pamela, what would make you think that you weren't? Like, does the way that you give and receive love make you think that you're not compassionate? Because that tells me that you're measuring yourself up to a standard of what compassion is supposed to mean, and you don't think you're that.
Right. That is exactly the conversation I had with my girlfriend. She asked me that question. It's like, that's how I arrived at the place that possibly I could consider.
Sandy has a question.
Yeah.
I think would be good to cover. I know we're
Thanks, Alyssa.
getting down on time. She says if we have two, is there a mark that says one is more dominant? And that is something that we'll look at when we look at handprints together in class and under the magnifying glass, looking at the fine print of your hands. That sometimes, because this is a palm marking, these lines can come, they can go, and they can change. They're not permanent like a fingerprint. So what do you think it could mean that one line is strong and stronger than another? Does anybody have an idea of what that could possibly mean, given that lines do change or can change over time?
Or overnight.
Or overnight, or in an instant.
And I'll just say too, for folks who aren't as familiar with looking at the hands, by stronger, I think what you mean, Michaelin, is like the line is much more clear, like it shows like it's almost written, it's more thickly drawn, if you want to say it that way. Is that what you?
It might be deeper, it might be smoother, it might be unbroken. The other one might be fainter and have gaps. There are a lot of different ways that can show up, and we'll look at that during class. So is there anybody that has any idea of what that might mean? To have one being strong and one being less so. Is there one that's dominant?
Are we expressing more from that line? That's what Kathy said.
Well, I would, can I jump in?
Yes.
Oh,
You're the teacher. Go ahead.
I think my first reaction would be that that's the dominant way that someone would be expressing or showing. I don't know if that is true, but my guess would be the energies that are more to the forefront of our expression would, like, the stuff that you use more, right? Because like on my stairs, they're covered in carpet. The treads I had an interior designer look at my stairs and go, "Are your stairs sagging in the middle?" I said, "No, it's just the carpet worn of where our feet go." So I feel like that's the same thing for this.
I think it is the same thing. And one of the values of looking at handprints over time is that you can tell, is a line getting stronger over time? So am I a romantic idealist who's developing more passionate tendencies? With that passion line coming in stronger, or the opposite, is the passion line going away? Is it becoming a little more faint? Is it moving over toward Jupiter? So there's a whole fascinating conversation about how heart lines change over time, which I think we could probably address in the class as well, but over 12 weeks, I'm not sure how much change we'll see. But if you have old prints and new prints, that can be a great conversation to have.
And Nellie just added something which is very contributory to this conversation, is that the hermit part of her heart line is drawn stronger, and the big heart part is lighter. To me, that indicates that there's been, and it may not be true, but you're adding more big heart energy that the Hermit used to be the predominant energy, but the big heart has been added in order to adapt to some experience in life. So that can happen as well, like when you become a mother or you get married or something and you adapt. Your Hermit doesn't fly in the environment, so you have to adapt to becoming a big heart, so you draw some big heart energy on your hand. Or it may be going away. Maybe you used to have a lot of big heart energy and you don't need to have it anymore. And it's getting diminished. But you get to be more true to that Hermit part, right? So there are all kinds of, nobody knows for sure exactly. Unless you, like Michael was saying, you have handprints over time and you can see and talk about life changes. If you're just coming in with the first time having your handprints done, we don't know what the history is, unless you tune in psychically and can find out. Or there's a conversation explains things in your life. That happened. I have a question. Are any of you considering being in the class? You don't have a way to talk. Can you put it in the chat box? I want to make sure that you get the information that you need in order to sign up for it. It starts next week.
This is Lexi. Yes, I am. I just had to figure it out financially.
Okay.
I'm planning to sign up.
All right, good. I sent you the information last week, so you have that. Yeah.
Yes.
So Sandy has a question about cost of class and time commitment. So that was covered earlier on in the recording, or in this class. So there will be a recording of this session.
But I
And we
can
can
go
also
back
send
and share
out-
that screen. Let's go back just and review that. What does auditing mean, Nellie? So it's a 12-week class for 90 minutes a week on Wednesdays at 1:30 and on Zoom like this. And we begin next week on Wednesday through April 24th. So that's the time commitment. And if you're on the certification track, you will also have time with Michael and Marlene and me. And you can also send us email questions about Heartline related things. Plus, you'll get a PDF of my book to your heart. My head work. What's the name of my book? Your Love Design. It completely went out of my head. Okay. I'm so tired. Oh my God. And the commitment is either pay in full, $850, $650 for the learning track, $850 for the certification track, or the payment plans, 3-part payment plan, $290 a month for certification and $220 a month for the learning track. Does that answer the questions that you had, Sandy? And Nellie, I was curious what you meant by auditing the class.
She answered, Pamela. Can you read that?
Oh, yes. Listening to the recordings because I can't be on the live calls, or will you offer this again later? We may offer it again later, but I don't know for sure. So, yes, that would be the learning track if you're not going to be actively participating. That would, yes, and then, of course, you can get the recordings if you make the payments for the learning track. Somebody else was having that conversation too. Yes. Okay. Anybody else considering that? Okay. Doesn't certification involve more than this class? Not for Heartlines. So here's the difference between how hands has normally been taught and what we're doing differently. I had this epiphany one day that a few years ago that hands is just too hard. It's just been too hard for people to get certified to teach anything. So I said, okay, there's got to be an easier way because I love ease. One of my main motivators is how can it be easier? So taking the entire database of hands and breaking it into segments So you would be certified to teach Heartlines after this class. You'll be an expert on Heartlines, which you will never get in a year-long class where you're learning the whole database. You'll never get this much depth. And the only other way to get this much depth is to either, I don't know how you ever would get as much depth as you're going to get on Heartlines in this class. You could watch all the movies I've watched. That's a possibility, which have been thousands. Or you can, and reading my book is helpful. My book is a textbook for this class, and a lot of you already have it. If you don't, we'll make sure that you get it. So that's the certification is just for this. It doesn't certify you to teach hands, although if you've taken a year long and you are teaching, you're going to teach, right? But this is a certification specifically for Heartlines, and we're going to be doing one on fingerprints. We're going to be doing one on gift markings this year. Those will be available also later. The gift markings is not going to start till this one is complete. The fingerprints looks like it's going to start sooner than that. So that's what the certification is for just for this. That's why it is connected to the 12-week class and how you will have permission to be teaching Heartline.
And also to add to that, we'll be doing some assessments along the way to gauge where everyone is and what you need more of, et cetera. And then, at the end, test, if you will, right, to make sure that you know the material to be certified.
And you'll be doing a lot of the talking during the class, so we'll be knowing as we go how you're doing.
And part of the curriculum of the class is to give you practice and to set up templates and procedures to make it as easy as possible for you to be teaching this on your own, whether it's an independent topic that you're teaching or it's part of something that you're already doing in a coaching business or a healing business or a teaching business.
Okay, yes, right.
So Linda has a question. I know we're just about out of time. Am I teaching classes with Pamela now? And I just want to say yes. And isn't it exciting that you could take one class and have 3 teachers in the same class? I don't think this doesn't happen this way online anywhere else. So it's incredibly rich in the resources that will be available to you in this class.
Yes, really. We have 3 of us. We're amazing teachers. You know me and my confidence. We are super amazing teachers. I said Jupiter. I can't help it. I have to be a little bit arrogant. Okay.
But you're still compassionate.
I am still compassionate. I could be arrogant and compassionate. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
At the same time. Aren't we all, really, in some way?
Thank God.
Yeah.
True to yourself, yes, for sure. I am true to myself. I was telling somebody a couple weekends ago, I feel very responsible about being a role model. I take my role modeling responsibility seriously. So the more true I am to myself and the more authentic I am, the more permission it grants other people to be that way in my space and hopefully outside of my space. Right? Michaelin calls me the Empress of Permission. That's what's happened for her in her relationship with me in my class.
Yes.
Friendship.
It's been a great journey. It's not just permission, but it's encouragement as well. There's a calling for me to live my gifts more fully because I spend time with Pamela. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you, Michelle. I agree. Thank you. All right, so Dixie is the only one that we have saying for sure, and Nellie is going to participate, but not physically, because she can't. Thank you, Michelle. I am good at being able to appreciate myself. Okay, Nellie, I want to see how I can become more involved. That would be great. I think it's just going to be, if there's a way to do that, you can carve out 90 minutes a week from your super busy schedule. Just take care of yourself. This would be a very self-nurturing experience. And if you need to eat lunch while we're doing that, you can eat while we are talking and then just mute your picture while you're eating and then unmute it and share and stuff. So I've had other classes where people have done that, where they've been eating on the class. And we don't really just want to watch you eating, so it would be good if you just muted your picture while you're eating. But yes, that's another option. Have it be a lunch break or a dinner break, depending on your time zone. Okay, anybody else? Any other comments, questions, insight? All right. Thank you all for being here. And we did get this whole thing recorded. I'm going to be putting it up on YouTube. And I will send out an email to my list telling you, giving you the YouTube link, and you can share it with other people also if they're interested. There are people you know who might want to have learning some of the information that we've talked about today.
It's nice
All right.
to meet you all. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're
thank
welcome.
you.
Welcome. Yes, we're glad you were here and sharing your experiences. Thank you. Always very valuable.